A day of high drama in South Africa. Nhlanhla Nene is let go, the fifth finance minister in 3 years. Can Tito Mboweni provide the security the country needs? And in our international news segment, an important ally of Donald Trump has resigned. We find out why Nikki Haley's walking away from the job of US ambassador to the UN. That's tonight with Jane Dutton.
After due consideration of the circumstances surrounding this matter and in the interests of good governance, I have decided to accept his resignation.
And with that, Nhlanhla Nene is out and Tito Mboweni in. South Africa's fifth finance minister in just 3 years. It's an extraordinary move for a country in recession trying to paint a picture of security. But when President Cyril Ramaphosa finally accepted his resignation, the markets responded the way we desperately hoped they would. They went up, taking the rand with them. Is this move enough to restore investor confidence in the economy and help pull us out of recession? We know that Mboweni is a fan of cutting the bloated civil service to pump money into the private sector and infrastructure. And it's good for the public purse, but will this put him on a collision course with the unions? And I should imagine that Ramaphosa will be watching to see what impact this has on his influence within the ANC and the extremely important midterm budget. Will it be enough to secure his grip on the presidency in this election year? And we've got to wonder, with Nene as one of the first victims of the Zondo Commission, who will be next? Those are the questions for my panel tonight. What are yours? You can contact us on 011-759-6340. Tweet us on hashtag Tonight with Jane Dutton. But first, here's Shahan with the news.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it. Of course, you know by now, South Africa has a new finance minister tonight. Tito Mboweni's appointment has been largely welcomed. The former Reserve Bank governor replaces Nhlanhla Nene. The IFP, DA and EFF say they're pleased Mboweni got the job. The Black Business Council says the appointment comes at a crucial time for South Africa. It's also praised the president for acting decisively. Shocking revelations have emerged on the state of the country's passenger rail network. PRASA all but admitted it's on the brink of collapse. It's been losing passengers, and arson attacks have cost the rail company over 700 million rand in the last 3 years. 2 more trains were set alight while PRASA was briefing Parliament.
I would say that this is a very serious problem, that I'm quite confident that with enhanced cooperation between ourselves and the security cluster, we will actually be able to nail the people who are responsible for this.
And a sexual abuse victim has spoken out about his ordeal at the hands of a Catholic priest 30 years ago. William Sekhodisho claims he was raped between 1985 and 1989. He says the priest, who has since returned to the UK, would force him to drink alcohol before abusing him. Sekhodisho was 13 at the time and living at a Johannesburg homeless shelter.
Not every weekend, but most weekends. When I was there, I was expected to pleasure him. So this thing affected me a lot.
I'll be back with in-depth coverage on the economic implications of the Nene decision on NewsHour. That's tonight at 10 p.m. Jane, back to you.
Thanks very much for that, Shahan. Let me take you back to what happened at 4:45 today, 15 minutes later than we expected, and what a long wait that was for us and for the state of our economy. We knew the president was going to tell us the fate of Nene. This is how it happened.
Minister Nene this morning submitted a letter of resignation to me in which he requested that I should relieve him of his position of Minister of Finance of the Republic of South Africa. He has indicated that there is risk that the developments around his testimony that he gave to the Commission on State Capture will detract from the important task of serving the people of South Africa, particularly as we work to re-establish public trust in government.
And the president was full of praise for the former finance minister. Nene was commended for choosing to step down in the wake of his testimony at the state capture inquiry. The president emphasized that Nene hasn't been implicated in any wrongdoing.
Minister Nene served the people and the government of the Republic of South Africa with diligence and great ability. He served our people under very difficult circumstances and often coming under great pressure. But he consistently defended the cause of proper financial management as well as clean governance. It is indeed a measure of Nhlanhla Nene's character and his commitment to the national interests of our country that he has taken this decision to resign in the wake of errors of judgment, even though he has not been implicated in any act of wrongdoing himself.
So it's this man, former Reserve Bank Governor Tito Mboweni, who will replace Nene. Mboweni has a lot of experience in government and finance.
In the wake of Mr. Nene's resignation, I have decided to appoint Mr. Tito Mboweni as the Minister of Finance with immediate effect. As former Governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa, and before that as Minister of Labour, Mr. Mboweni brings to this position vast experience in areas of finance, economic policy, as well as in governance. Mr. Mboweni takes on this responsibility at a very critical time for our economy as we intensify cooperation amongst all social partners in our country to increase investment, to accelerate growth, and create jobs on a much more substantial scale. This moment calls for strong, capable, and steady leadership that will unlock the various new opportunities that have been identified by the social partners, particularly as clearly stated during the Jobs Summit.
And the president says the Commission into State Capture must continue with its mandate. He also says that South Africans with any information relating to state capture must come out and speak out about it.
It is critical that the Commission has the means and opportunity to effectively fulfill its mandate. In this process, no person should be above scrutiny, and indeed no person should be above the law, and all relevant and credible accusations of wrongdoing should be thoroughly investigated. It is incumbent upon any person who may have any knowledge of any of the matters within the Commission's mandate to provide that information, provide it to the Commission, and to do so honestly and to do so fully and completely as well. For the country to move forward, we need to establish the full extent of state capture, identify those responsible for facilitating it, and take decisive steps to prevent this from ever happening again in South Africa.
Well, South Africa's had two finance ministers between 1995 and 2009. We've now had 5 ministers in the space of 3 years, Tito Mboweni being the latest. Let's get some perspective on this and who this man is who hopefully will pull us out of the doldrums. Michael Marulia, tracking that timeline for us, Michael.
Yeah, Jane, it has been a series of ministers in this particular portfolio, and it's really been a timeline of trouble, if you want to term it that way. Let's start in December 2015, less than 3 years ago. This man was hired as the chief person in charge of pulling the purse strings here in South Africa, Des van Rooyen. He was a backbencher within the ANC, no experience inside National Treasury, but Jacob Zuma deciding to get rid of Nhlanhla Nene and put Des van Rooyen in his place. The rand did not like that particular decision. It surged to 16 against the dollar at one stage and struggled to make a recovery in the weeks that followed. The market clearly spooked by that particular decision. The ANC also spooked by the decision. We understand they put pressure on Jacob Zuma to reverse the move. In fact, the so-called weekend finance minister was only in power for roughly 2 or 3 days, and then he was summarily dismissed and moved to cooperative governance. What exactly did Zuma do? Well, he turned to a familiar face in the form of Pravin Gordhan, who had served as the finance minister for 5 years between 2009 and 2014, but he did not last long. April 2017, he also got his marching orders, fired along with his deputy, Mcebisi Jonas, and the market again getting a little bit spooked by that move. We saw the rand surge close to 14 against the dollar in the wake of Gordhan's dismissal. And there was more turmoil to come because instead of replacing Gordhan with an established hand, someone who knew his way around Treasury, he pointed to Malusi Gigaba, who had experience at Home Affairs and Public Enterprises, but again, no experience in the Finance Ministry. President Cyril Ramaphosa then enters the fray, that political bombshell, when he came to power in February, and he made an interesting decision, returning Nhlanhla Nene to the position. The market obviously liking that move as well, restoring some stability until, of course, we had these revelations at the state capture inquiry. And cue Tito Mboweni, this photo obviously being taken a few hours ago. He's now the man who has been hired. What does his CV look like? Well, of course, he spent close to a decade at the South African Reserve Bank. The key takeaway from that is he understands how policy can translate into the real economy. Remember, he was one of the pioneers of inflation targeting at South Africa's Reserve Bank, so he understands that aspect of the job. Also served as the Labour Minister in Nelson Mandela's cabinet, credited with introducing sweeping labour reforms which transformed South Africa's labour market. And he also has an interesting perspective on South Africa because he's been on the board of international advisors for the investment firm Goldman Sachs. So over the last few years, he has taken a step back and really seen South Africa from a different perspective, the perspective of an international investor, potentially. Finally, Jane, this is his real challenge. These are the GDP figures quarter on quarter over the last 4 years. What you're going to see there, 18 quarters since the beginning of 2014. 6 of those 18 quarters have been negative growth. So in other words, 1/3 of those quarters we have actually dipped below the 0% mark. And perhaps the most disturbing came at the beginning of this year, where we lost 0.26% in terms of GDP. And in the second quarter, more than 0.5%, placing us in recession. And I know your panel of guests, Jane, are going to address that issue. Tito Mboweni now having to jumpstart this economy and, crucially, growth with jobs. That's what Cyril Ramaphosa wants, and that's what all South Africans will need in the months ahead.
You really wonder why anyone would put their hand up for the job, Michael.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for that. Before we get into the conversation with our panel, we've got a call on the line. Albert from Orange Farm. He wants to thank the former finance minister. Go ahead, Albert. Hello, Albert. Go ahead.
Okay, Mama, I can speak Zulu because I'm not quite clear to speak English. I can speak Zulu.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Mama, Tito Mboweni. awuyelile kulela sikafinance idango ngoba uphumile yena azi inkinga yakhe yini.
Okay, sorry, it's a really bad line, Albert. We're going to have to leave it there, Albert. But anyway, somebody's saying goodbye to Nene, we assume, and Tito Mboweni is now in charge of South Africa's finances. It was precipitated by Nene's testimony at the state capture inquiry, where he lied about how many times he had seen the Guptas. So what does this mean now? Political analyst Prince Mashele, economist Duma Gqubule, and Azar Jammine, chief economist at Econometrix, are with us tonight. Very good to have all three of you with us. Let me start off with you, Azar. What was your response when you heard that news?
I hadn't thought of that as a possibility. I thought it was more likely to be maybe C. Jonas or Lesetja Kganyago. But I suppose the markets would like it, and any neoliberal economist, the business community, they will like it. I'm not convinced that the trade unions will like it. But therein lies a very interesting question. Mboweni was a very left-wing economist advising the ANC in the early 90s. He then became Minister of Labour and introduced labour laws that have now been accused of being the cause of higher unemployment by the business sector, and then turned around and became a Reserve Bank governor. At that time, when he was appointed as designate Reserve Bank governor, the markets tanked like anything because everyone thought he was going to be a left-wing incumbent of the central bank. And he turned around 180 degrees and became an extremely conservative member.
What do you think brought that turnaround about?
I wonder whether one should regard Chris Stoltz as a very persuasive person. I don't know. But also, obviously, he had a lot of dealings with the International Monetary Fund that must have persuaded him that, you know, you don't fight against thunder. You play with these guys if you want to get the best. And he did get the best out of it. And South Africa had a very prosperous period of time under his leadership at the Reserve Bank.
Duma, what was your response? Were you also taken by surprise? It seems, I mean, I gather you're not alone.
I think about 2 hours before, I started hearing the news that Tito Mboweni is the new finance minister, and it was confirmed by the president. So I think it's I can see how the president appointed him. It's a very safe pair of hands. He's experienced within the economic cluster. But the finance minister himself in February said, no, it's not time to recycle old leaders. And I think that the background to this is that we're in the worst post-apartheid economic crisis. We've had a lost decade in terms of economic growth. Our economy's grown between 2009 and 2017 by only 1.6% a year, and it's grown by about 0.3% per capita terms. So since 2014, as you saw in the graph there, we've had declining GDP per capita. This year, we're going to have the 5th year of declining GDP per capita. By the end of, so we will have 5 years of poverty for South Africans, growing poverty. Now, how do we get our country out of this hole, out of this worst post-apartheid economic crisis? Now, what I'm scared about is that we are now, will he be open to fresh ideas? Because if you look at what the president said in his State of the Nation address, was it in February, and what happened in the budget, and what has happened subsequently, it's quite clear that there isn't, I believe, a proper economic policy to get us out of this crisis. What the government is doing, if you can call that a strategy, they're trying to tick all the boxes in terms of what the rating agencies have said they want to do, and it's all about the optics and looking good in terms of the public relations, but I haven't yet seen the substance as to what will get us out of this crisis. And
okay, and let's delve into that a little bit later on, but Prince Mashele, what do you make of this decision?
Well, 3 things. One, I was pleasantly surprised. I think Tito is, under the circumstances, the best person to lead that ministry because he has the requisite experience. He was a member of parliament, he was a member of cabinet, he led the Reserve Bank, and he has experience in the private sector. So I think he's the best appointment. So that's one. Number 2, the president missed an opportunity to sweep his cabinet clean. If he's truly committed to good governance, as he has said he is, he should have fired other ministers who are rotten, who are sitting in his cabinet. Malusi Gigaba, for example, who was found by the court to be a liar and dishonest, Batabile Dlamini. So the president missed that. The third thing is, we must condemn Nhlanhla Nene. I had people talking about commending him for resigning and so on. I think that's nonsense. He must be condemned. This is the person who misled the South African public into believing that he is a credible man. He lied all along. He must tell us how much money have the Guptas given him. We know that the Guptas have been generous in bribing their collaborators. They promised Mcebisi Jonas 600 million. How much money did they give him? He attended meetings. They must have given him something. I think he must be investigated by the Hawks.
Is that the question that needs to be answered? Do we need to go that far?
Well, I'll stay away from the political economy questions.
But it has obviously it has an impact. The sentiment, the trust.
Well, I'm talking about the challenges that are facing the finance minister as he gets in. So now he has to present this medium-term budget in about 2 weeks. And what we're seeing now is that the economy went into a recession in the first 2 quarters of the year. So the budget that he's going to present, he has to first bring down the growth forecast. It was 1.5%, so he has to halve the growth forecast. The revenue has to be cut as well. And then the shortfall between revenue and expenditure will go up, and the budget deficit number will go up. And the question is, does he now start an even more aggressive policy of austerity, which will tip our economy deeper into this current situation? Yeah.
Isn't the midterm budget already in place? I mean, surely those figures must be there.
Jane, I think most of the work has been done already for the midterm. So all he has to do now is come across as a very credible, powerful finance minister, and that will start breeding a bit of confidence again.
But why do you think everyone was surprised that he got the job?
I think he was out of most people's minds, actually. I think that was the thing.
So why choose him then, if he was out of most people's minds, if you think that there was possibly somebody better?
I suspect, you know, he was on the board of advisors of Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs has been very supportive of Cyril Ramaphosa. And so I think there's a nexus there that actually thought this is the best man for the job. And as I say, the business community will be delighted. We've seen the Rand rally quite nicely as a consequence of this, as a sign of this.
Look, I think I agree with him. What we must not forget, these are elite games. We don't know where Tito Mboweni plays golf and where Cyril Ramaphosa plays golf. It could be that it was out of our minds, but they were playing golf together. So this thing could have been cooked anyway. But here is the thing about it. Even as South Africans are excited about the appointment of Tito, and I said he's the best man for the job, we must not view him as a messiah who's going to rescue the South African economy. The South African economy is in dire trouble.
I think we're learning that lesson, though, in South Africa.
The fundamentals are not there. The majority of black people are unskilled and uneducated. What is Tito Mboweni going to do about that? Absolutely nothing. We have the business committee in South Africa sitting on more than $1 trillion, he knows it, uninvested money. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa has been generally welcomed as a good president, but they have not been pouring their money into the economy. So I don't think that the fundamentals are going to change simply because Tito has been appointed.
All right, we've got a caller, Opa from Bloemfontein. Go ahead, Opa.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. What's your What's your question?
You know, really, to be quite honest with you, I am really disappointed. Honestly speaking, not Opa, I'm Khoto anyway, so to say. You know, let us correct that first. I'm Khoto. I'm really, really, really disappointed in these ministers, honestly speaking, because we have entrusted the African National Congress to lead the poor, you know, the poor of the poorest. But now, out of the blue, these guys, I don't know what is going on. Really, it's quite disappointing. This is the political party that we thought it will actually, you know, take us, I don't know where, in an actual fact. But now, all of a sudden, if we hear all these stories that this, you know, Nhlanhla Nene has been based with the Guptas, I didn't want to believe this before, in an actual fact. I thought, you know, President Jacob Zuma is going to take us somewhere. But now, all of a sudden, it's bad. Honestly, it's bad. I don't believe this, honestly, really. And then let's hope Tito Mboweni is going to bring something. I don't know, really, honestly speaking. I'm really disappointed. Okay. You can see even here in Bloemfontein, if you come down here in Bloemfontein, there are tensions that have been dug up here. We don't know what is going on here. It's a mess. It's a mess. The buildings have been, there are flats that have been built, we don't know what is actually going on here.
Okay, thank you. I mean that's the reality.
I agree with Opa because, as I've said, we're in the worst post-apartheid economic crisis. And we don't have a plan after all this time of the new government to get us out of the situation. If we continue on the current trajectory, we will be at 10 million unemployed. What will it take for them to change course? Will it be 10.5 million unemployed, 11 million unemployed? So I'm predicting in front of you all here today that if we continue on this downward spiral of austerity, which reduces our GDP, which reduces the revenue, which increases the budget deficit, it's a downward spiral of economic collapse, and that is what's going to happen to us if we continue on this.
That's the reality on the ground, isn't it, what you're hearing? You know, we've got a collapse in the education. I know efforts are being made to resuscitate it, buildings closing down, jobs closing down, small businesses. It's almost a Sisyphean task.
Prince highlighted the core of the thing is education. Until such time as sufficient South Africans can be taught and upskilled to a level that they can add value to the economy, to earn enough, you are not going to see the reduction in inequality and the kind of... Now, you might then criticize the Job Summit. It was an attempt within the constraints of not actually tackling some of these long-term issues immediately. At least
talk shop.
It was a talk shop, which may not be such a bad thing, especially because it tried to bring business and the government and Labour closer together.
South Africans are sick and tired of the talk shops. I mean, they now need to see something being done.
There is a structured talk shop called NEDLEC. These people have been meeting, business, government and Labour, they meet all the time. What has that structured talk shop brought about? Absolutely nothing. The economy is in shambles. Here is the thing about it. If we were to check the shirts we are wearing here, you would be surprised that they're made from China. If I checked the other day, I was in my office, I checked the mug I was using to drink coffee. And when I looked, it's written made in China. Manufacturing today happens in China. Now, that means that we South Africans are creating jobs in China. What is it?
They've got a competitive workforce as well.
Exactly. What is it that Tito Mboweni is going to do to ensure that I sit in my office, I drink coffee from a mug that is made in South Africa? It's a question of skills. So if you don't have the technical skills, and you have other countries that have better technical skills, you are not going to compete. You can change as many finance ministers as you want. You can have as many labor summits as you want. The fact is the economy will continue to decline and people will lose jobs.
Chef from Linnaeus on the call. Go ahead, Chef.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening to everyone. Yes, I just want to congratulate the new Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, for the new position. And I believe that he can do it all the best by the way to take us out of this situation at the moment in South Africa. With the petrol issue, I've got a question that how are we going to survive in this current situation whereby, liter of petrol is 17.80 rand.
Okay.
And then, taking on other people who can do themselves. I just want to
Okay, let's pick up on that. I mean, what is going to happen when it comes to the basic necessities, which are incredibly expensive and just going up? What can he do to tackle that?
I'll tell you, the easiest thing that theoretically can be done is to reprioritize government spending in such a way as to incur massive savings that have been squandered in the last 5 years on corrupt practices. I don't think we even have any idea, a clue as to how much this is. We've heard estimates of 150 billion rand a year. That's 7 to 10% of the annual budget.
And I'm sure that's just scratching the surface, because I'm sure we will never get to find out how much. But we know that Tito Mboweni wants to tackle that. In the past, he said that he wants to, tackle the bloated government.
I think there's no evidence that the public sector is bloated, and I just want to disagree with my fellow panelists. We all want a better education system, but I think it's offensive to say that people can't get jobs until they're educated. If you look at many of the countries in the fast-growing Asian countries, they created jobs for the workforce that they had, and over time they moved up the value chain. So we can't create jobs for the workforce we wish we had. We have to create jobs for the one that we currently have. And I think there are many ways that we can get our economy going in now, when they talk about education and structural reforms, those are things that can be done in the long term, but we need to come up with a plan to get us out of this recession in the short term. And unfortunately, over the past 8 decades since macroeconomic policy was invented, there are only 2 ways or 3 ways of doing that, and that is through expansionary, monetary, and fiscal policies. So the Job Summit, the reason why it didn't work is that for the past 2 decades, they're not allowed to discuss macroeconomic policy. I think it's time for Tito Mboweni to open his mind to a new way of seeing things and introduce new thoughts around the macroeconomic policy.
Can I sorry, just quickly read a tweet that he sent earlier this year? He said, "Against the wisdom of my team, please don't tell them this. It's between us. I'm not available for Minister of Finance. You cannot recycle the same people all over again. It is time for young people. We are available for advisory roles, not cabinet." We have done that. So he said he's out of the running, but he clearly was in it. And doesn't he make an important point there about the youth?
No, here's the thing about it. The thing about job creation involves 2 types of human beings. One, he's right. There is a component of an unskilled workforce that you can exploit. But you need a guy to set up a factory. That guy has to have the best education in the world. That is the guy who should organize the factory. We don't have that club among black people. So when I talk about education, I'm not talking about education only in relation to the mass of the people who are in the township, but I'm also talking about education in relation to the lack of technical skills among the people who are deemed to be educated today. Because, I mean, if you were to say, who is the best black scientist, for example, who can be given an open field and say, you set up a factory, you shall manufacture cell phones and employ the uneducated, you would scratch your head. And that has got to do with the quality of education. So I'm talking about education in those dimensions.
But we are creating.
You can tinker with a fiscal policy and macroeconomic policy. But even if you do so, if you don't have that kind of technical expertise, you're not going to achieve any results, in my view.
But I have to point out that we have about 3.5 million, I can't remember the figure, graduates in this country. Most of them are black. You see what I'm saying? So there is quite a lot of graduates. And then the second thing, our universities are turning out 200,000 mostly black graduates every year. So I do think that they're equally distributed between social sciences, business, commerce, and management, and STEM. If you look at the figures from the Council for Higher Education, I've looked at the figures, and I don't think we should be dismissing social science degrees. They're relevant as well. Okay. But there are enough graduates that are coming out in different fields of South Africa. Yeah.
All right, so Ismail is on the line from Cape Town. Go ahead, Ismail.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I just want your guest to comment on what I have to say. We are a country that's in the process of developing, but this country is being run like a mafia. It's been run like a mafia in the sense that the political mafia, I call them. If you look at who is now the new finance minister, Tito Mboweni, he was involved with Goldman Sachs, and these people, they just come, they dictate policy, And the worst thing is our country's Reserve Bank is not owned by us. We can't just draw money out there. We have to wait on these people to dictate to us because they are the ones that's bringing the money, and they don't take out money just like that. We must pay back billions and billions of rand. That's why our country is so much in debt. Because our country's politicians are controlled by these high finance people. And I wish your guest can comment on that. For as long as we do not own our Reserve Bank, we will have problems. And for as long as we only speak of investments, we've got all the mineral wealth, we've got everything in this country, but we cannot export, we can do nothing because our life is controlled.
Azar?
Firstly, the nationalization of the Reserve Bank, owning the Reserve Bank. The majority of reserve banks in the world are owned by their governments. It doesn't mean that the monetary policy itself then becomes answerable to the government.
Well, here's the other thing about Goldman Sachs. What the caller must keep in mind is this. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are American companies. They are the companies, by the way, who advise the Chinese to turn around their state-owned companies. Look at where China is today. So this idea that international agencies can't help a country in the realm of policy, I think is far-fetched. The country has to be awake in order to interpret correctly what it is advised about international agencies.
And surely that's where his strength is.
Exactly.
What he must have learned.
Number two, exactly, that's the strength of Tito.
Yeah.
Number two, the international agencies alert you as a country to the thinking of international investors out there, which is why our president has been globetrotting, trying to attract investors from overseas to come and pour in their money here. So if you say away with international agencies, you are actually shooting yourself in the foot. I think that is cheap
South Africa has to make itself attractive for foreign investment.
Yes, of course. But Goldman Sachs, they've appointed most of the U.S. finance, treasury ministers, and they were implicated in the whole thing of the global financial crisis. So I don't think, Prince, we should be listening to them. In terms of foreign investment, I think people must understand that foreign investment doesn't kickstart an economy. In South Africa, foreign investment accounts for about 5% of our capital expenditure. So in any country, investment is driven by domestic investors. Now, domestic investors, you talked about the 1.4 trillion that the top 50 companies are sitting with in cash reserves. Now, in economics, investment follows growth. Investment doesn't kickstart growth. So it follows growth with a lag. So we've seen it many times in South African history. When the economy picks up, the investment picks up, as happened in, let me just quickly talk about...
Hold on, because we're going to have to wrap it there. And
Okay.
thank you all,
Thank you.
three of you. It's a big topic. We're going to talk about it more. Prince Mashele, Duma Gqubule, and Azar Jammine, thank you very much. Still ahead, the rand stronger, the country possibly has clarity, but will the new finance minister sustain the upswing? You're watching Tonight with Jane Dutton.